Money and relationships, two of the most intimate emotional parts of life. And yet, they often don't mix well. In fact, money is the second leading cause of divorce. 1 in 3 couples say money is their number one source of conflict. 48% disagree on spending. 34% aren't aligned on retirement. Even strong relationships can feel strained. And the tension, because if you're not aligned financially, it's hard to feel connected emotionally. And when it comes to building wealth, it's a lot harder to build it when you're not building it together. That's why today's episode is personal. It's my 24th wedding anniversary, and for the first time ever, I'm not only having a man on Women Growing Wealth, I've invited my husband, Matt Earl, onto the podcast. Matt Earl's been part of nearly every financial decision I've made for the past 27 years. We've had big wins, and we've had some really challenging moments. Through it all, we've managed to build wealth successfully while growing side by side. You're listening to Women Growing Wealth, and this is the podcast for women who want to invest with confidence, live with intention, and grow wealth the women's way. I'm your host, Tamar Hermes, and today we're talking about money, marriage, and what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts with a partner or with your future self. Let's dive in. Okay, so here we go. This is an exciting time. We've been working on this for 3 days because while we've been married for 24 years, today that people are watching this episode, July 21st, is actually our 24th wedding anniversary. We almost didn't make it to this podcast because we had something that was happening that was we had technical difficulties.
Challenging.
We had some challenging technical difficulties.
Yes.
And inside of that was also a great metaphor for how I believe that we've navigated relationship and money and building wealth for so long, which is that we might squabble a little bit and we might have words, and then we sort of meet a compromise. And at the end of the day, we are here in our dining room, in our home, because I was wise enough to finally figure out my husband is actually a very successful television and film director and has been for many, many years. So it made sense that at a certain point, I gave up control and I allowed you to set the scene here. So thank you for being here, Matt Earl Beesley.
You're more than welcome, Tamar Hermes. And I tell you what, a big honor to be here because judging by the badass ladies you've had on your podcast so far, the fact that I was able to swing in here, pretty damn good. So thank you.
Yes, you earned the honor of being the first male. We will have men interviewed on the podcast, although we are leaning more toward women because it is Women Growing Wealth, and it seemed fit that you would be here. And I'm super excited to dive into money and wealth and marriage and all the things. And I know you're looking at me like, what is my wife going to ask me now? And is she actually going to air this? Oh, yes, I'm going to air this. You better be
I
watching.
think I have edit in my contract. It's written right there.
So let's get started. This is a topic that is, I think, really valuable for a lot of listeners because growing wealth with a partner has even more nuances to it, right? Because we have another person that we're dancing with through life. And when we started our journey, we actually did not have any money at all. So you were actually, when I met you, you had already had a successful career, but you also had a marriage that didn't work, and that drove finances into a situation that you'd never had. So not to start out and get this already really heavy, but I'd love to hear, where was your money mindset at the point where you had made all this money and things shifted for you and we were starting over?
What was my mindset? My mindset was to start making a lot of money again and not give it away. I can say that my go-to has been pretty old school in that I make money and I put it in the bank, which, as I've learned by being with a badass investor like you, that's not really going to grow wealth. You put it in the bank, it's going to just sit there. It feels good to have that security, but I think that was still my mindset. Just get money, put it in the bank.
And so when you were in a situation where you realized that you had been putting money in the bank and there was no money in the bank, was there a feeling of failure at all when you started, or was there any what was the energy when we started embarking on our journey together?
A lot of trust. My energy was that I had a lot of trust in you because I saw pretty quickly how you were able to buy your first duplex and turn that into a money making machine. And so I already had someone that I was connected to this time around that had a real good sense of where to put money to help your money grow.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was also a business venture. I love it. That's exciting. So, pretty much you had started working in television at that time. You started working as an assistant director in CSI. You had been a big director. You had worked on Braveheart. You had done a lot of big movies in the feature world, and you had wanted to become a director. And at that time, we were actually talking about this the other day, and this is such a pivotal point in terms of one, how we navigated and trusted each other and were able to grow the wealth that we have, but also the way that we work in relationships and the way marriages last. Because a lot of people ask us now that it's been 24 years, how the heck did you do it? What's the secret? I always say that my husband's a prince, and he really is. And it does take a lot of surrendering on both sides. So tell us about when you first decided, I'm going to start directing after CSI, when you were going to start your television career. Can you tell us about that story and how long you didn't work and what our lives were like?
Sure. Well, backing up a little bit, when I took the job as an assistant director on CSI, I did that with the idea that they would let me direct. So even though it got down to it where, okay, you're going to let me direct or not, they said they couldn't promise me an episode, but they would do the best they can to make it happen. And that was because even though I directed second unit on Braveheart and worked on all these big movies, I had not proven myself as a television director. And it was CBS at that time. CSI was a number one show. 50 million people would sit down on a Thursday night and watch that show. So there was a lot of focus on that. So turns out that I remember taking the call at my daughter's baseball game that they weren't going to be able to actually guarantee it, but they were going to do everything they could. And I said, well, okay, I'll have to think about that and I'll get back to you. So the smart thing that I did that day was to engage my wife in that conversation because she obviously knew who I was talking to, the showrunner on the show, and said, so how'd it go? And I explained it. And she goes, what are you, crazy?
Mm.
What are you going to start over someplace else as an assistant director with the hope that they will give you this opportunity? So I called them back and I said, I'm in. And that year they did give me an episode, and then I got a second episode, and then it was time to leave to move on because doing a couple of episodes of a hit show is great. It got me a great agent, but what it didn't do was launch into, I'm in competition with guys that have done 100 episodes. And so during that next, I would say 7 months, I did not work. All I did was I went around town. My agent set me up with a bunch of meetings, and I probably met everybody in town that could possibly give me a job on the executive level. In fact, I would go visit sets, and people would go, oh, Matt Earl, so you're directing now. What are you directing? I said, well, I may never work again, but I'm going to know everybody in town. Turns out it worked out. I started working, and now 150 episodes of television later and still going strong. It's worked out.
It's amazing. And I think that one of the things that we did so effectively at that time was really one, believe in our dreams and our visions for our life because we didn't have a ton of money then, but we were comfortable. We had enough. And that's one thing we're also going to talk about because our temperaments with money are really interesting. And while we have had arguments, that's one of the places where we have not argued at all, really, in our relationship. But this is, I think, part of it is that one was that you needed to jump off the cliff in order to get to the other side. So you needed to leave CSI in order to be able to have this opportunity to take those meetings to get another position. And that period of 7 months, a lot of people don't have the patience and don't trust themselves enough to and don't have the support from a spouse where they could go on that journey and follow their dreams with a bigger vision of what could be. So that was the first thing, and not to toot my own horn, but in that regard, I was really good because I really have always been someone from that came from modest means, and so I've always been able to be happy with thrift store clothes or eating at a moderate restaurant instead of a fancy restaurant, even though we've been blessed to buy more expensive clothes and eat whatever food we want. So I think that that was one thing that we did really well, and I think that that's an important key that when you're looking at a relationship or if you're in a relationship, you really want to know what is your partner's level of trust in you and what is your partner's ability to support you to believe in your vision because you don't want to be either way, man or woman. You don't want to be with someone where they're basically telling you, look, we have to keep this job because we're making $200,000 more. There's even ways, in fact, where I just interviewed Amanda Hahn a week ago, and that episode just aired. And Amanda was talking about a lot of times she'll have partners that are maybe both doctors, and one of them actually leaves to become a real estate professional and ends up making more money not working as a doctor because of the tax savings. So there's just so many nuances, but the point is that if we want that freedom, we need to be able to support each other to get there. And I really wanted to start with that story. Now, there have been other
Can I
pivotal.
jump in here one
Yes,
second?
yes, yes,
One
please.
thing that I was about to say, but my wife jumped in and like if she was like reading my mail, was the fact that what really got me through that time is I never lacked the confidence in moving forward to my career. I directed 2 episodes. I had all this background and now I was really going forward. But what really helped me, I had the confidence, but I also felt the need to be supportive of my family. So the fact that I had married the right person and it just said, "You go, babe, you go, you got this." I mean, that's a big deal because I was making 0 money. I was going around Los Angeles, meeting everybody in town, but I wasn't making any money, you know?
And I was pregnant at the time too. So I mean, we had a
We had a
child
lot of
coming.
stack. It was stacked pretty high, you know?
Yeah. And I think part of the conversation here, and one of the many reasons that I wanted to talk with Matt Earl here on Women Growing Wealth is because of the decisions that we've made we have needed to be bold and we've needed to take some risks, but we've also mitigated risks. The same kind of things that I talk about oftentimes with my in my mentorship and how we grow wealth and how we invest, especially more and more as I've learned more and more through the years, becoming more prudent in terms of where we want to take chances. Now, speaking of that, there was another pivotal point in our life where we took a big risk and when we were married, we lived in a house that my husband had lived in with his ex-wife. And so it always never felt like our home. And I know I'm probably not the only one on this that is sharing this situation that comes up where there's a history and we end up moving into a house that was once with other partners and I really wanted a home of ours. But it's expensive to buy a home and this was many years ago now and especially wanting to it's different buying an investing home and buying a home for yourself because sometimes the home that you buy for yourself is not just an investing decision. Generally, it's actually less of an investing decision. It's more of a lifestyle decision. We even had a client of mine just the other day was telling me that she actually remodeled her home, which I said from an investing standpoint is not great, but she loves the house and she loves where she's living now. And so that's really important, which brings me to when we decided we were going to move and bought a house that we realized we really could not afford. And this was a really intense time. This was probably one of the biggest stretches that we made where I actually would say it was really not very smart, but it was emotional, and somehow it was like we just decided we'd bet on ourselves. So, do you wanna share the story about this? And this was mind you, this was when the market when everyone was getting these loans and was eligible for a lot of loans. Now, we did sell the house that we did make a couple $100,000 on the house that he sold, and so we did get that money, but we were looking at we bought a seven-figure house. So
Right. And what the interesting thing about that was it's just the way the universe kind of pivots and works with you if your mindset's in the right position. When we bought that house, when we went into escrow on that house, I had two jobs. I came from having no jobs for 7 months to okay, now I've booked two directing gigs. Okay, but only two. That's not going to hit that mortgage in the long run. The minute we signed,
well, now I had money too,
yes,
but
yeah.
still, that was a big mortgage.
Yeah, but I always say my money is her money and her money is her money. That's the way a good husband would do it. And that's also a lot of trust. But the thing is, the way the universe worked for us is that when we signed on the dotted line, literally the next week I booked like seven more jobs. So it's kind of like, okay, this now we're on the right track. Now we're on the right track.
One of the things that we told ourselves at that time was that if it didn't work out, and this is the same thing that I teach in
That's
the
good.
investing criteria today, and the things that have brought me to financial success on my own is I always mitigate for what if this happens? What's the worst thing that can happen? And in our minds, what we shared was the worst thing that could happen was that we'd move to a smaller home and we would need to explain to our children that we made a decision and took chances based on our dreams that we know were risky, and we felt that they would still love us.
That's what I was going to say. My criteria is like, okay, we may have to move. It may not work out, but do my kids still love me? I would say yes. It's just a house. Does my wife still love me? I hope so, but it's just a house.
So, yeah, it just speaks to times in our life where we could take chances. Obviously, we were also a lot younger then. This was over 20 years ago. And we were obviously, when you're younger, not that you still don't take chances, because we take a lot of chances today, but more prudent at this point, and we're more seasoned. So we don't need to make as many risky decisions. And we also know more.
When you guys also, the way you guys work is that you do your research. The research on buying this house was like, well, I hope it works out. Okay. You guys, you do take risk in what you do as investors, I'm sure, but you do a lot of research before you pull the trigger. This was like, let's just pull the trigger and see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, there was, I mean, it wasn't completely out of control. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't have a dollar and we bought this house. We had money that would last us a while, but we also knew that it was a huge stretch. So that was part of it. And I was just going to say that, that's another consideration in all of the things that we're hitting on are things that we're doing in conjunction in partnership. And this is part of the dance because when you're on your own, you're making the decision and negotiating only with yourself. And when you have a partner, the partner's mirroring for you different ideas and different things that they're feeling from their history. Now, you grew up without a lot of money,
Right.
and so did I. And so we always, I believe, one of the things that has really helped us, which I mentioned earlier, had a temperament of not needing to be driving the fanciest car, not needing to have the best things. Now, granted, we both have Teslas now. We have really nice things. We have a pickleball court. We have a lot of really nice things, and we're able to do a lot of nice things. And we always have, but we've always also had a good temperature for what we really want to spend money on and what we're just frivolously spending money on. And generally, there's been a really nice balance there.
Oh, I think you were perfectly in sync on that. I mean, if anything, I'm the one that wants to keep buying cool stuff for you, whereas I would not buy stuff for myself. I don't need that, but I want to try to, you know, get this for you. And you're the one that says, no, I don't need that. I don't need that. So we're very much the same on that one.
Again, like I say to everyone that says, "Have you been married for so long?" I say, "Find a prince." And and a lot of my friends that have that married princes say, "You know what? You're right. You just need to find a prince. That's what it
It's
is."
the second time you called me a prince. I think I need to go find my crown.
Let's talk about kids because a lot of our listeners have kids, and money and finances with children, it can also be challenging, right? Because we're not only navigating our own relationship with money and managing how we're going to grow together and make big financial decisions together, like we talked about houses and careers and big rocks that we've moved together. Kids are a huge rock too.
Absolutely.
So tell me what your take is like around the kids, because I think that we've done a really good job. We're 3 for 3. We have beautiful children, and they're still on their way, 19, 23, and 29 in their careers. They're not fully in wealth mode yet by any stretch. One is in medical school, one's a musician. They're happy though, and they have a good sense of money. We have a certain idea about what we give them and what we don't give them. And do you want to share about that? About how we kind of came into that?
Well, I think it's good to remind them once in a while because in this day and age, I mean, there's a lot of privilege going around. There's a lot of people that aren't so privileged, and there are a lot of people that are. And I think that we've taught our kids. They realize how privileged they are, and they also realize that both their mom and their dad did not grow up and that amount of privilege. I mean, and so what we also one thing that we are really in sync with, and God bless our kids for getting on this bandwagon is literally the work ethic because I know I had my first job when I was 13 years old. Now I got lucky because my dad was a school teacher and he took a summer job so we would have a little more money at the Dallas Country Club as a swimming pool manager. And so I and my brothers walked right into a job. I mean, my friends, unfortunately, were out there mowing lawns and everything else. And I was like opening up lockers and paging people and handing out towels at the swimming pool when I was 13 years old. And I know you were able to do this back in the day before they were so up on security. You were able to actually lie about your age and get your first job, I think, when you were like 14 or 15 at a,
Hmm.
at a restaurant as a hostess. Wasn't old enough to be a waitress, but she could be the hostess. So we both had that work ethic. You just, don't be outworked. I mean, I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan, and he said, look, know what you're going to do, have a plan, and don't be outworked. And I think that's the way I've always known to pass along to my kids, and they've got that same work ethic. In fact, my daughter, when she does these interviews and stuff, they ask her about that, and she always talks about her mom and her work ethic.
And I want to clarify too, when we talk about work ethic, there's layers to it. And this is part of in our relationship when Matt Earl says certain things, I hear it and I know what he means. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're definitely it's great to work hard, and it's also equally as critical that you're working diligently on something that you're passionate about.
Right.
So that's the other huge piece. It's not like, oh, just go get a job, go do something and work your butt off and just work and just make money. And it's not like that at all. The conversations are not about that. When Matt Earl says work hard, what he's really saying is if you commit to something, if you believe in something, if you want to be good at something, do the best you can at it. And when he says don't be overworked, he's really saying be as passionate as you can about it. Believe in what you're doing. We have our oldest is a musician. She's very passionate. She works in an ice cream store. Shout out Ariel.
Mhm.
And she's amazing. She just went on her first tour and got signed with a record label and is following her dreams and works really hard while she's doing something she loves, and even finds joy in working at the ice cream shop because that is part of her story and her journey. And we love that. And no, we don't pay her bills because if we did, then how would she know what she was capable of? If we were to solve that for her, if we were to say, here's this money, then how does she know how to have her relationship with money? So that's a point that we both have really connected on. Our middle one is going to medical school and is working on applications now. And the little one is actually he's 19. When we say little, he's 6'5", and he's quite a big boy now. But what we say is that he is learning how to be passionate about things that he's interested in. He has an internship full time right now in real estate. And we're really proud of that. So when we say work hard, what we also want to instill on the listeners is if you are worried about your children and you're worried about them being productive citizens in the world and finding something that they find that they're passionate about, if you love and support them and they know that you have their back and you encourage them to follow those dreams and to be diligent about those dreams, it seems like based on our track record that we believe success will come. And now not only have we done it, but now we also see our children doing it and on their journey. And it's not just it is a different kind of wealth because they're not wealthy and they're also not worried about it. They also don't come home and say, "Gosh, I wish I could get this new gadget," or "I wish, I could buy this or that." They are learning to live just as we did within the means of what they've created, of what they're able to create it. Now, granted, if they need something, we've got them. If they call us and they say, "Hey, I need money for this or this or this," and it makes sense to us, we've got them always. And they know that. It's really important, I think, when you're building wealth and when you're building anything, when you're building a fruitful life, that you allow yourself to expand into the vision of everything you want to be.
Right. One thing I wanted to say about our backgrounds is, you were talking about find something you're passionate about and go for it. If I remember the way you grew up, your dad being a Holocaust survivor and your mom growing up on a kibbutz, I mean, it was a little bit more about just survival. So they may have taught you, hey, go out, get the job, get the money, blah, blah, blah. Whereas my parents were like, my dad was a school teacher. So the chances when I figured out I was like 10 years old that I want to be a director, my dad just said, "You go for it," and I had the right background people saying, look, get something you're passionate about and don't be outworked. Don't overwork, but don't be outworked. And the thing is that what I really honor about you, Tamara, is that you probably had that background of go get a job, make money just to survive. And you've been able to branch out beyond that. I mean, when I met Tamara, she was a very successful award-winning producer, editor, writer for ABC television. And and she was working for a salary. She was making some good money, but she was working for a salary. And then she was able to pivot and become an entrepreneur that you are now. And being an entrepreneur is all about you're out there. You're out there in the world. You're not punching a clock 9 to 5. You're on your own schedule.
Mhm.
So what I really admire about you is that you've been able to make that shift in your career path and be the person that you are now. And I think the same with our children. I mean, my daughter wants to be an anesthesiologist and she wants to be a PhD, MD, so an anesthesiologist and a research scientist. And at certain points, she will be working for other people. But the part where she's the anesthesiologist, she'll probably have her own company. So there's an entrepreneurism on that too.
That's
And
awesome. I
what
love
she's
that.
learning from you.
I love that. And okay, let's pivot into building wealth, investing. Over the years, there have been many times where I have come to you and told you, "Okay, I'm going to buy this property. I'm going to buy that property." There have been days where I have come home and said, "Oh, we bought a new house today." And so there's this level of trust.
There you go.
Luckily, I'm right more than I'm wrong. I mitigate risks well. I am able to cultivate good partnerships. I'm able to analyze deals well. And so it's worked for the most part in my favor. What enables you, like for listeners that are listening to this podcast thinking either they're the ones that are investing in real estate or want to invest in real estate, but maybe the husband doesn't want to as much because he's nervous and wants to just keep the money in the 401k, or vice versa, where the temperament is different. What advice would you give, and what has enabled you to be able to have so much trust?
I think, first of all, the one bit of advice, and I don't know if there's another Tamar Hermes out there, but if you guys are single, you should try to find her, marry her, because that's the trust right
All
there.
the women should try and find me.
Why not? Why not? I feel that literally trust and wisdom are the key words here, because I know you well enough to know that, like say, you're in the process of buying property or making an investment. And I know by the time you bring it to me to say, hey, I'm doing this, what do you think? I know you've done your research so well. You've done everything you can to make sure this is a success. So at that point, it literally is just trust. And I'll look, I mean, I'm dyslexic. I'm a dyslexic filmmaker. So she used to joke with me because I used to being careful about money because of the way I was born, I was raised, and the fact that I did lose a lot of money to a previous situation. I feel that I used to sit down and balance my checkbook, and because I'm dyslexic, it would literally take me half a day to balance my checkbook. And at one point, she was just it's driving her crazy. So we figured out another way to do it. I don't balance a checkbook anymore. But I think getting back to what your point is, it's a matter of trust. I know you'll have done the research. Now, a lot of men and women probably will figure out the research together. That's not the way my head's at, different side of the brain. So I pass the ball to the person who's got that brain.
That's awesome. That's great. And that's something that you can take into your relationship. So if there's different temperaments in the relationship where one partner is a little more conservative than the other, then that is a conversation where you can have where you can explain, hey, what will it take for this level of trust? And also for all of the listeners that are single, this might be characteristics that you see that are components of what you want in a relationship. I know you said that everyone should look for a Tamar Hermes and marry them, but I have a better idea. They can join the mentorship and then they can get time with me and the other amazing women in the group and get investment opportunities and learn how to build wealth alongside me. So they don't have to marry me. They don't have to go that far,
That's
but they
correct.
can have a partnership in our community. I like this conversation because I think that there's a lot of meat here. And now we're getting into the crux of what happens in relationships. Like I can ask you little questions like, "Oh, what's a silly thing we spent money on?" or, stuff like that. And of course, we bought things, we made mistakes. Oh, I did once buy a timeshare. That was a lot of fun. That was crazy, but we did get out of it.
Yep.
That was interesting. So there, I'm definitely always exploring, and the family has indulged me. And now I love it because now looking back on it, even with all my businesses that didn't go as planned and my investments that were a little bit crazy town, they still think that I'm pretty amazing and good with money. So I managed to convince them very well. So, okay. So let's talk about when you're in situations, when you're in conflict, around money, and maybe it's a situation where maybe someone has lost money, or maybe it's a situation where there's a disagreement about the kids and money, which can happen frequently for sure. I'm just wondering what type of advice, like what would you say to someone that maybe is having a conflict because the temperaments of money and where one wants to go, maybe one wants to buy a lot of properties, but the other one doesn't want to, or some scenario in that way. What do you think?
Negotiate. If you have two different opinions, I mean, everything is a negotiation, and I don't mean that in, the hard part. It's just keep talking. If like I say, I'm lucky because I trust you because you have the background and the knowledge to figure these things out and not lose money. Sometimes it goes wrong. If you do everything you're supposed to do all the research, and then something still takes a left turn, you got to just go, okay, that's the breaks of the game. And I always say, look, we lose a little money, we'll gain it back, you know? But I think in my case, it's like I got lucky because I have so much trust in you to, to fill in those gaps of the parts that I don't know about. I think in relationships, for the people who are single, I think it's real important pretty early on to figure out if you're on the same wavelength. Like if I had met Tamar and every night she wanted to go out to Spago or someplace,
That was a fancy restaurant in LA back in the day. We're
right,
aging ourselves.
right, still kind of fancy, not as fancy
It's
as it
still
used
there,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like if she wanted to do that, or every time we passed a Gucci store, she'd want to buy something. I would think, well, this maybe not the right fit for me. So I think it's you're not like you got a checklist and everything, but you just observe how people relate to money. And we from the very top were big time in sync.
Yeah, and I think that that is really critical. I mean, even if I hope that this conversation turns a light bulb on for anyone that's looking at either the relationship that they're in and figuring out where things need to navigate, or if they're actually seeking the right partner, what criteria they're looking for. I always talk about the wealth criteria and the wealth code and all of that. And the truth is that you're also, your partnerships, and especially your key partnership that you're growing with, you want to make sure that there's harmony, because when there's not, it can really create a lot of tension, and that isn't something that can be easily resolved. The one thing that I would say too is that for people that have overspending partners or have someone that's too conservative, that has to do a lot with the money story, with where you came from with
Right.
money. Now, Matt Earl grew up in a way where they didn't have a lot of money, but they always found ways to enjoy things. And in our house, we had that too, although it wasn't as much. And it created more of a desire for me to create the life that I have now, with freedom, with time freedom and financial freedom. At a certain point, I think that it's true that if someone is spending differently than you are frequently, then you really want to go back to that money story. For me, my money story was money's not for me. I was born without money, and people with money are people with money, and people without money are people without money. And I've had to actually go back and revisit that story a lot, even today, as I expand into wealth, as I expand into how much more can I have, because then I start to feel like, well, there's a layer, even when I have a lot, it's like, oh no, I have so much, like I shouldn't have any more. It's not for me. And so that's a story that I need to recognize in order to be able to live into my vision of being able to contribute more to the world, being able to contribute more to my family, and to just enjoy the fruits of the life that we live, the value that we put into the world, and the currency of money, which is a symbol of that. So, do you feel that you have a money story in a way that you had an idea about it?
Not necessarily, other than just, follow your passion and the money will take care of itself. If you're doing something you love, you will automatically work hard. The key is to work harder than anybody else and you'll rise. And so I think that the money story is find something you're excited about and go for it. Now, everybody doesn't have that opportunity, but I think everybody can at least strive for something, for like a better life.
We believe that everyone can create whatever kind of life they want and have whatever opportunity they want, because we see it all the time. People come from all sorts of backgrounds. And what I like about what Matt Earl was saying was that his money story had to do with an idea that if you believe in yourself enough, then you'll make it. We had a friend over here the other day who runs a very successful company in Austin here, a THC company. And he just looked at me straight in the face and he said, Tamar, whatever business anyone has, they will always find a way to be successful if they stick with it long enough. And I think that that's the same sentiment that Matt Earl adopted. He was a confident child. He just thought, well, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm just going to just keep doing it until I get there. And that's what we've really instilled. And I think that's really the sentiment
Absolutely.
of what you're saying. And when we say, and I understand also what you're saying in terms of, I don't like that I'm saying that some people don't have the opportunities, but let's face it right now, some people don't have as many opportunities in certain ways because their lives are very stressed. And we don't want to make it sound like there aren't many, many, many challenges, but we pray and hope that everyone will be able to nourish themselves, build the wealth they want with a partner they love, maybe even for 24 years. It's actually been 27 years. And
We've
and
known each other.
that we've known each other. We met on Thanksgiving. And then 3 years later, he finally put a ring on it, the wrong side. And so, yeah, so I believe that. Let's wrap this up because I think we've really, is there anything else that you want to say about this? I feel that we've given quite a few nuggets and we've gotten to the heart of what we believe is pivotal in terms of making relationships work and building financial wealth together. We do, like Matt Earl said, for many years after he had ended his last relationship, he actually managed his own money and I managed my own money because he never really said anything, but I could tell that it was important to him to see money coming in and him having some control over it. And so it was actually quite a while. I mean, it might have even been like 10 years that we both just had our own account. So really, I mean, one thing I want to add in there to any listeners is that you can create the money relationship in any way. And certainly had Matt Earl and I met today, we might have one of us might have gotten a prenup. There would have been different situations, right? He's laughing like, would you have done a prenup if you had $20 million in the bank when we got married?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Let's just say I would.
Right.
So, and I'm willing to say it. And it's not that I don't love my partner. It's just that I believe that you never know what's going to happen in life and that there's nothing wrong with it. And what I've wrong with saying, look, I've had this and I'd like to keep it, and you can still take care of the partner either way. But to not do that sometimes and too often does end up biting people in the behind. So I do think that it's a good thing. That was a kind of an impromptu question. He didn't know I was going to ask that. He didn't know I was going to ask anything.
There you go.
Welcome to his world. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today on Women Growing Wealth podcast. And please subscribe and like us wherever you listen to the podcast or on YouTube. And we really appreciate you being here today. And I hope you enjoyed this impromptu episode with us makeshifting our dining room into a podcast studio. And I hope that you got a lot of information and ideas out of how you want to move forward in your life with your wealth building and your partnerships.
Thank you. Thank you.